Merry Christmas and welcome. There's no place like home for the holidays. This year we are celebrating the anniversary of the Masonic Homes of Kentucky. For 150 years, Masonic Homes has been a trusted community caregiver. In 1867 in downtown Louisville, a group of Masons established the first Masonic home to care for widows and orphans of Masons lost to the Civil War. Later, more Kentucky widows and orphans arrived as a result of World War I, coal mining accidents, and other hardships. At Masonic Homes, the lives of many children from rural areas were transformed as they were educated in traditional studies and also learned important trades such as printmaking, woodworking, and farming. In 1927, the home moved to a larger 127-acre site near St. Matthews. From the early days of our founding until the later days of the 20th century, this facility served as a home to hundreds of orphans and widows. And though our last child left many years ago, the Christmas traditions and memories of years past live on. For many souls who came to the home as a result of loss, Christmas holds a particular place in their heart. It was truly a time of love, joy, and celebration. That Christmas magic is alive today. We've discovered from the Masonic Home journals a treasure trove of letters, memories, and glad tidings to share with you and your family. Imagine, if you will, a still December evening, a light snow falling softly. The windows from the cottages of the widow's home are aglow on these chilly evenings before the holidays. Earlier, in the autumn, the teachers were given long lists for the children to select what they would like for Christmas. Dorothy King, whose beloved mother and aunt both resided at the home, fondly reminisced about Christmas time.
My mother also spoke about Christmas so much. You had, I think, 3 gifts that several months before Christmas, you indicated what those gifts were. In your 3 gifts, you could have a professionally made pair of shoes. You could also have candy.
As Eugene Blanton, a resident of Cottage 4 in the 1950s, remembers,
well, Christmas, it was a special time, and some of the prettiest pictures you'll see is out there on the campus around that time of year when luckily you have a big snow. It's a time to be an individual at Christmas time because they're going to give you a choice.
Since its founding, the Masons came together to give each resident, from the youngest child to the most elderly widow, a holiday to remember. Dolores Noller, another young resident from the 1950s, recalls,
we got to make a Christmas list and list 3 things that we would like to have. And we would get that, what we requested, like a pair of shoes, size 7, or sweaters, so on. And they would be wrapped and left as gifts.
November 1st, 1914, from the correspondence of T.J. Adams, the superintendent.
While every father is preparing to make those around his hearthstone happy, please remember that these little souls left to our care are looking forward to the same pleasures, anticipating what joy Santa Claus will bring to their little hearts. We are now sheltering and educating 307 children and have 22 widows with us. Oh, how happy these children and widows can be made on Christmas morning if each Masonic Lodge will send us a contribution. I truly hope that our brethren and friends will not forget us this year.
Each year, the Masonic Home would reach out to Masons from across the state and region to help fulfill the Christmas wishes of the widows and orphans. Here's the holiday appeal from 1933. When you read this message, you should consider it the collective voice of every man, woman, and child who live in the homes in Louisville and Shelbyville. This message is not the product of any one of them speaking for himself alone. Rather, it is the sentiment that is felt by all of us, a sentiment that is prompted not by your Christmas support this year, but by your continued support of our homes, your unflagging interest in our welfare. We are provided with all the material comforts that are necessary for our health and welfare. In a holiday season, we lean heavily on your strong shoulders for the little luxuries that in reality do more for our hearts than for our bodies. You have come through magnificently, nobly, always. In the face of rising cost and increased demands, you still remember us. We want you to know that we realize and appreciate your sacrifices and your spirit of giving. We are thinking of you who thought of us. God bless you all. The Masons heartily responded. Many affiliated Masonic organizations from across the state came to provide aid and support. From the journals of Laura Johnson, the longtime teacher, principal, and education administrator, we have the details of that generosity.
The Shriners, the Lodges, the Oriental Ladies Auxiliary, the Oldham Club of St. George have done so many wonderful things for the children and widows. Early in the fall, the teachers were given long lists for the children to select what they would like for Christmas.
Every year, donations and presents arrive to our home from across the county. Our 1933 journal lists the following thank yous. A few days ago, I received an interesting letter and a donation for our Christmas fund from Brother Stanley Satterwhite of Honolulu. He is more than 4,000 miles from our home, but he wants Santa Claus to remember our children on Christmas. We enjoyed his letter and appreciate his donation. Christmas is the topic of conversation at the home, and the children can tell you how many hours it will be until Santa Claus will come.
I sincerely thank D.H. Ewing & Sons for 80 gallons of good buttermilk they so kindly sent us only a few days ago.
The enterprising grocer at 3rd and Bloom Streets for a barrel of good apples.
Rockhole Lodge, number 795, for a large turkey.
I want to thank the D'Annunzio Fruit Company for 5 bunches of bananas.
At Christmas, each child was allowed to select 2 things in addition to the pair of shoes that they each received. A committee from the board of directors always carefully selected the presents with the superintendent and matron. Articles of clothing, toys, books, etc. are purchased, and then a good dinner is served. It was the happiest day of all the year in the home.
Christmas Eve, all of the children were sitting in the playroom singing Christmas songs, and after finishing the song, "What is Keeping Santa?" who should step in but Santa Claus himself? The children were delighted to see him. He gave them all a present and said he had to be on his way because he had to go a great distance to see other girls and boys. On Christmas morning, everyone assembled in the dining room, where all united in singing Joy to the World. We were led in prayer by Mr. Ringo. Following this, the CE juniors sang, while shepherds watched their flocks, after which some of the girls in our cottage gave a little pageant, illustrating the Bible story of the shepherds in the field, watching their flocks when the angel came to tell them Jesus was born. At the close of the angel's speech, a number of little girls represented the multitude of heavenly hosts came in and repeated tin chorus, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill to men." The younger girls of the cottage represented the sheep.
On Christmas Eve, Mrs. Carpenter, the much-loved matron of the widows, arranged a lovely tree with their presents around it, and they had a real party. After the presents were distributed, Mrs. Carpenter read the story of how the first Christmas tree came to be decorated, and Mrs. Hoffman, one of the widows, made a talk which was most appreciative of their home. A program over the radio was then enjoyed. And then, finally, the blessed day arrived. Christmas was here. The gifts were always received with warmest gratitude.
And there'd be things like one of these little train on a track or a sweater.
And it was a huge Christmas tree, and there was presents all over the place.
At 9 o'clock Christmas morning, our large family and the directors of our home and several other brethren with their families assembled in our chapel. The children sang a beautiful song, The Christmas Bells.
Brother John L. Wheat read a portion of the 2nd chapter of Luke and offered a very earnest and fervent prayer, and then we began to distribute the useful and beautiful presents that Santa Claus brought our children and the widows.
December 1929. Each of our 130 girls received a pair of nice shoes, and some of them hand muffs, fur boas, scarves, gloves, umbrellas, dolls, handkerchiefs, doll buggies, sweaters, trunks, doll furniture, Bibles, doll dishes, suitcases, toilet sets, work boxes, fountain pens, beads, wagons, etc. The widows, 22 in number, also received useful presents, such as dress skirts, patterns, clocks, and shoes.
That was a big time. You know, you got all the special meals, the candies and stuff.
We had a good dinner Christmas Day, consisting of oyster soup, crackers, oysters, turkey, dressing, vegetables, celery, cranberries, pickles, mince pie, cake, figs, raisins, bananas, and in fact, everything good to eat. We had apples and oranges and candy all during the holidays. My brethren, it is a big undertaking to make preparations for 313 children and 22 widows and have no dissatisfaction when the day is over. Only 2 of our children and 1 of the widows were sick on Christmas Day.
That's the only time of the year that we would have a grapefruit, and they would have half of a grapefruit cut, and you would have that before the breakfast.
We have had a very delightful Christmas in Cottage 7. Some of the older girls in our cottage got up early and went caroling Christmas morning. We went to Widow's Building and Mr. and Mrs. Adams' cottage. Some of the children got little sewing machines and work boxes. They were very much pleased with them. Isabel Williams is the champion artist in our cottage. She drew a mountain, and Grace Gross, our famous critic, told her that she had better write mountain on it. A great many children in our cottage received ukuleles for Christmas. Bonnie and Edith are teaching them to play. Thelma Benton can already play 1 jazz tune. Pauline Brewer got a rifle for Christmas, and she said she was going to shoot some ducks. Every time she comes around with it in her hand, we all duck. Miss Kunz was very happy on Christmas Day by a visit from her son and his wife from New York. It was indeed a beautiful scene on Christmas morning when our children and some of the widows assembled in our chapel and sang the Christmas chorus. Children and widows send love and best wishes to their many friends. The older children in the home have asked me to express their thanks to the Masons and friends who so tenderly thought of them and the good old ladies of our home during the Christmas festivities. Our widows look forward to Christmas with as much pleasure as our children, who express their appreciation of the kindness bestowed on them. My brethren, you have, on this as well as on former occasions, responded so liberally and cheerful to our Christmas letters. In being here with the children and seeing what you are so willingly doing for them, that my heart is so full of gratitude that it is impossible for me to tell you how much I appreciate your kindness to them.
The joy of the season, well reflected in this poem by Phoebe Carey, age 12.
For little children everywhere, a joyous season still we make. We bring precious gifts to them, even for the dear child Jesus' sake. Thou blessed babe of Bethlehem, whose life we love, whose name laud, thou brother through whose poverty we have become the heirs of God.
I wish every Mason in Kentucky and all of our brethren and friends that contributed to our Christmas could have been with us and heard their sweet voices ring with joy and happiness. Today, Masonic Homes thrives as an innovative caregiver that offers specialized services to people of all ages and affiliations at both its historic Louisville location as well as 2 other Kentucky campuses in Shelbyville and Northern Kentucky. Services include independent living, assisted living, personal care, rehabilitation therapies, memory care, skilled nursing care, home care, dialysis, and child development. This year, over 400 residents will tip a cup of good cheer as the holidays allow us to celebrate our 150 years of service. We'd like to thank our sponsors, 180 Degrees, Farley Printing, and Lusk Group for making this nostalgic Yuletide journey possible, and also to you for enjoying this magical evening with us. We wish you and your loved ones a very Merry Christmas.